All right, we're going to move on to 7.3, Bamford feeder pattern modifications. Can I get a motion? All right, go ahead, Jess.
I move that the board approve the change to Bamford Elementary School's feeder pattern so that students residing in the Bamford attendance area attend Preston Middle School for grades 6 through 8 and Fossil Ridge High School for grades 9 through 12, and such that the boundary areas for Preston Middle School and Fossil Ridge High School change to include the Bamford Elementary attendance area beginning in the 2025-2026 school year.
Can I get a second? Thank you, Jim. All right, and we have a presentation for this, so Mr. Kingsley, would you like to introduce them?
Yes, thank you. Joining us this evening to present the Bamford feeder pattern modifications is one of our assistant superintendents, Dr. Julie Chaplin. Julie, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be back with you all again on this topic. And so, yes, have a presentation for you, and we'll definitely entertain questions at the end. As this is my third presentation on this topic this year and one previously a few as we were wrapping up last year. This is a much more condensed version, so please make sure you ask questions if you want me to clarify any of the information from previous presentations. So here we go. What are we talking about? We are talking about the overutilization of the space that's available at Timnath Middle High School. Current enrollment as of this week is 1,453 students. And we are looking at the 12th grade class being the first grade to graduate from Timnath Middle High School this year. That class is approximately 100 students smaller than all of the classes behind them. So we do know that we're going to have, in addition to a new 6th grade class coming in, that we have a smaller class going out. So we're going to see growth just inherently with the difference in those class sizes. We're looking at a projected enrollment next year, if we do not make changes, of 1,538, and our national standard capacity, which we currently are over, is 1,424. I do want to also highlight at the same time that our neighboring feeder in the Fossil Ridge feeder, Preston Middle School and Fossil Ridge High School, currently are underutilized and have space for more students. And this change, which I will talk a little bit more about at the very end, will definitely help enrollment at those two sites increase, while also simultaneously lowering the overutilization of space at Timnath Middle High School. So again, to reorient, we're here as a district, either superintendent and or committee. We're making a recommendation for modifications to the boundary area for board consideration. We did do community feedback, listening sessions, surveys, and the like. And per board policy, the board is responsible for approving changes to any of those boundaries. And so therefore, we're requesting a vote this evening. Oh, I'm moving the slides on my laptop, which is not connected. Thank you for letting me know. All right. So what is the cabinet recommendation? It is to modify Bamford Elementary feeder pattern to send students residing in the Bamford attendance area to Preston Middle School and Fossil Ridge High School instead of attending Timnath Middle High School. Again, space is available at Preston and Fossil and alleviates overcrowding at Timnath Middle High School, and this would be in effect next school year, 25-26. I do want to touch again on integrated services, as that was a specific point. And I do want to also speak to an error that I made in the last presentation. I talked about 2 programs at Bamford, and I was mistaken. They don't have an affective needs program, so I apologize for that error. The program that they definitely do have, which I spoke about last time, is the center-based autism program, which we've also heard in community comment as well. And so Timnath currently does not have that center-based autism program. Currently, right now, the options for students, whether it's with the change of Bamford moving to Fossil feeder, or whether they stay in the Timnath feeder, the options as they sit today and for the start of 2025 school year as of now remain the same. So there's no change for that unless integrated services, as I've talked with the director Jody Rommel, and also Assistant Director Amy Villard, who works with both Timnath and Fossil, about doing a review of our center-based autism programs to look at what would be the ability to have that. Again, no timeline on that. Knowing timelines as we go wouldn't be for 25, 26, but we would definitely want to look at that as soon as we could. And so those current choice patterns are the same for those students. They would attend, if they wanted a center-based autism program, Bolts or Weber. If they could be served through at high school, an ILS program, they could also attend Fossil Ridge High School because they do support students with center-based autism programming needs at Fossil Ridge High School. And so we're really talking about middle school for this population of students. If students in the center-based autism program at Bamford could be served in an ILS program, those are available at Kennard, and they're also at Timnath Middle High School. Again, all of those decisions are made by an IEP team to determine the best placement to meet the actual needs of a student. So, currently, students, we also have confirmed in working with integrated services that for the 25-26 school year, students who are currently enrolled in the ILS program in grades 6 through 12 this year at Timnath Middle High will have the option to stay at Timnath Middle High School with transportation throughout the remainder of their academic career until they possibly decide to move into a transition program. They will work with each family individually to determine who would like to potentially, if they would like to move into the Fossil feeder, or if they would like to remain in the Timnath feeder. So I want to be really, really clear. Students at Timnath, 6th grade through 11th grade now, if they'd want to stay in the ILS program at Timnath, they'll be able to do that, and transportation will be provided to them. Okay? So that is a new development that has occurred since the last presentation. Okay, so again, reiterating what that feeder proposal looks like. Our current proposal is that students in grades 6 through 10 would move to Preston and Fossil Ridge, and that Poudre School District would provide transportation. Students in grades 11 and 12 would remain at Timnath Middle High School through graduation, and PSD would provide transportation. Students would have options to stay at Timnath Middle High School for 2 reasons. First of all, the students are currently enrolled at Timnath Middle High School this school year. If they would like to stay, they could submit an intent to enroll form. This year's 5th grade students at Bamford could submit an intent to enroll form for next year at Timnath Middle High School, 25-26, if they have siblings currently attending Timnath Middle High School. The caveat is that this is a one-time only application. We will be opening that up this year around the school choice window timeline as well. And the second caveat is that families would provide transportation for students who want to submit the intent to enroll form and stay at Timnath Middle High. So again, just reiterating, proposed modification is the Bamford Elementary feeder pattern sends students residing in the Bamford attendance area to Preston Middle High School, Fossil Ridge High School, instead of Timnath High School beginning in the 25-26 school year. I want to hit one other piece, and I know this is potentially very small. So I did print this. It's very small in print as well, but maybe you want to hold it up close. I want to reiterate 2 pieces of enrollment information. The first piece I shared last presentation about the number of students who currently are in 9th grade living in the Bamford attendance area that choice to Fossil Ridge, and that number is 32. And I want to remind the board that it's approximately 50 students per grade level coming out of Bamford. So of that potential 50 student cohort that lives in the Bamford attendance area, the current 9th grade, 32 of them out of the 50 have already choiced to Fossil Ridge. So I think that's an important note to really highlight, as it indicates that many families are content with attending Fossil Ridge High School and being in that feeder system. There are also several sixth graders. It's not as much. I believe it was 13 at that grade level. What this shows you, these are actually, we're utilizing work from the Long Range Steering Committee last year because they really did some great work. And this Bamford option to move to the fossil feeder area was something that they looked at. And so what you're seeing in front of you is really this entire model really illustrates. If you look, you can see you've got 6 little columns that are in a light blue. That would be if we did nothing. Okay, then when we go to the last 6 columns that are in maybe like a lighter green, and it's called scenario enrollment. So that's our enrollment as of this year. That's the utilization as of this year. If the Bamford attendance area moves to the fossil feeder, okay, you will see that it provides relief to enrollment at Timnath Middle High School until 2032. So that's providing approximately 7 years of enrollment relief and overutilization relief for Timnath Middle High School. And I really want to emphasize that. If you then look at Preston and Fossil Ridge, you will see the inverse. You're going to see that they're going to benefit from some enrollment by those students being able to attend, and that's going to help increase their enrollment. And while Fossil Ridge may still decline over time, it's not nearly as drastic of a decline in enrollment for that program, and then Preston as well. So those are the 2 last pieces I just wanted to highlight. Again, using just some information from this same scenario, which was discussed last spring in the Long Range Planning Committee. And so at this time, I'm happy to open up for questions or discussion and your process for vote.
Thank you so much. I just, before we dive into anything, I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you. I believe you said this was the 3rd presentation on this. I know in that very first presentation, several of us asked you to, take another look and see if we couldn't make some small changes. And I think you have done a fantastic job. You and your team have done a fantastic job of looking at all of the small details, looking at all of the ability to, can we do transportation? Can we not? Can we, what groups are we looking at to make sure that those particular groups like the IS students can stay? I think you have done a tremendous job. And so I just want to say thank you for that. I know that probably that first time when you presented and we asked all those questions, you were like, oh goodness, there's a lot of, so those are a lot of things that we need to be looking at. But I feel like you did a tremendous job of doing that, presenting us with the best option here. And so I want to say thank you for that.
Thank you. And I will give equal credit, as you stated, to multiple partners in this process. Kim Cordova, who was in transportation for a long time, really helped out. My colleague sitting next to me, Dave Montoya, colleague behind me, Jesse Morrill, definitely Jill Barella at Bamford, just could not have done all of this work without everybody. And all of the principals, Preston, Fossil, all the principals in the Timnath current feeder who attended community sessions, Amy Villard, Jody Rommel, could not have really put together all this information without them. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and be sure to, we'll thank them tonight, but also be sure to thank them from us. I also want to thank the Long Range Planning Committee from last year for showing us this too. I think it's really helpful to see just how much relief we can give to Timnath Middle High School. So with that, I'm going to open it up. Anybody have anything that they would like to discuss? Go ahead, Jess.
I have more comments. First of all, the ILS students being allowed to either stay at Timnath Middle High or being allowed to have the choice to move, giving them the flexibility, I think is really crucial. I appreciate the consideration there. Mm-hmm. I also really appreciate, like you said, all the people that have been involved, right? The amount of community engagement that we've shot for and tried, the surveys, like you've done a lot of work, and it's, one pocket of our community, but it's still really important that we've done that work. And I feel like this is a nice showcase of, when we well, not we, when you guys really try to go out and get all the feedback and you're able to come up with a really robust plan, it makes our decision, I think, much easier, and we can feel more confident in our decision going forward. So I really appreciate the work behind this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Julie, was this spreadsheet here in our packet?
It was not. It was, that's why I gave a handout today.
All right.
Because actually, we thought about this after we have our board packets in very early now. And so this was a thought after the packet was in. And so I did provide it as an additional handout for you tonight, just knowing that that would be something new that you had not seen.
Okay, so when you say that current ninth grade out of Bamford, right, so last year they were in eighth grade, right, at Timnath Middle High School, right? Because that's where they were zoned. And then you're saying that, how big is that? How many total kids is that in ninth grade?
Well, we have 32 that currently are going, that have choiced to Preston now.
To
Fossil
Fossil.
Ridge. Yes, thank you. I apologize. Yeah, to Fossil Ridge right now.
So we've got 32 that are choicing to Fossil out of how many? Is it 50 kids or?
Jesse, do you have a thought?
I would say it's about 50.
Yeah, I think
So
50
so
has
it's that,
been
it's
pretty-
around that 40 mark that you were
yeah,
talking about.
40,
last time.
50. Yep.
Okay.
It's been pretty consistent that that's the cohort size of those classes.
And
So we
then
would estimate the same.
when those families that were in eighth grade last year and they choiced out, I assume that they were in the same choice window, so that was December? They had to, that was in December, so this was kind of during the quasi period between when we were thinking about consolidation over on the west side and forming the committee?
Yeah,
Okay.
the choice window opens November, early November, and ends before break,
Okay.
around December 15th.
And do you have numbers on that for anybody who was a ninth grader last year who is now a 10th grader? And what I'm getting at there is how many people, after they had been 1 year in high school at Timnath Middle High School, then self-selected to come out? If you don't have that number, that's fine. I'm basing that off
I
of.
do not believe that I have the choice numbers for 10th grade because we
Okay.
were looking at choice numbers for 9th grade and 6th grade only
Right.
as a response to potential choice transportation for this year.
Yeah.
So we did not pull that. We could easily get that if that's something the board
No,
wants.
we're taking a vote tonight.
Okay.
Kevin, go ahead.
A few comments. I'm going to begin by highlighting the Board of Education agreed to the following action items for the next 3 months as part of our retreat. And this was facilitated by Collaborative Group Dynamics, Dr. Megara Kastner, and also President Draper put this together, so I really appreciate that. So I want to highlight one thing that we even said tonight in our dinner session. The bravery theme statement is normalizing and celebrating bravery in myself and others. The actions that go with this are: 1, I can listen and change my mind, and 2, I don't hold back on my thinking. So I don't think I've ever been accused of holding back on my thinking with this group, but I think I owe it to our community to explain why I'm going to vote for big things. Not everything just warrants, robust discussion, but I think this one is a big thing. So my reasoning is as follows: 1, we asked for this. At the end of the long-term, the consolidation talks last year, we asked for, I think how we phrased it was smaller, bite-sized items that could provide relief now that were not quite as sweeping. So we asked for this exact solution, and it was delivered upon. Very importantly to me, the principals weighed in. At the very first discussion, they were all here, and we heard from the horse's mouth what they wanted, what they needed, what they required as sort of the experts of their universe, and so I have to trust that. This to me feels appropriate and not drastic. It feels reasoned, measured, and again, I'll highlight what you said, Directors, more about providing support with the ILS community. That was a big concern of mine. looks like it's achieved that too. And I think one thing that really stuck out to me too is that we all heard this in emails and from some comments, is that by not going forward with the big sweeping vote on June 11th, closing schools, we were kicking the can down the road. I kept hearing that over and over and over. I think this represents a hard decision for us to make. We're still changing feeder patterns, we're changing boundaries, we're changing the dynamics of our social fabric, albeit in a smaller subset of our community, but we are sort of playing gods of the universe of where people are going to go to school based on this vote that we have tonight. So it's not a little decision. This isn't something we take lightly. And so I want to repudiate that notion that we're ducking hard decisions as this board. We're not. And we're taking one tonight. And the last thing I'll say is a heartfelt thank you for the hard work that you did, because it made a hard decision for me it felt a lot easier. And so for those reasons, and for the weight of what the relief is going to give to our feeders and our schools that we need it, I'm voting yes.
Thank you. Anybody else? Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, I've really struggled with this one too. It seemed initially like low-hanging fruit, but there are a lot of issues that came up. I think community comment tonight, the discussion about exploring a center-based autism program at Preston, I think, is a valid one. I think, Brian, you and I visited the Bolts center-based autism program in the room. First day of school, it was fantastic. How many staff members does it take for that program? Are there 2 or 3?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry. So our extensive programs, which center-based autism is one of those, is a 2-to-1 ratio.
Okay.
So it starts with a teacher and 2 students. We never just have 2. So then it's a 0.5 para with every student that goes beyond that. I believe Bamford has about 24 students in their center-based autism program, which is a significant amount of population for a school with 200 and, less than 300 students. So,
Okay.
But anyway, yeah.
So that means, doing the math, that means the Preston would need to be 12 staffers to do the 2-to-1 ratio?
That's what we would have to look. We would really need to look at, because everything is center-based, where would students go? Because there are some students who could be at center-based autism at Bamford that, Weber or Bolts would be their neighborhood that would be appropriate for them.
Okay.
So it's going to take looking at each student and where they currently reside, and looking at how many students would be able to populate a program in Preston to do that. But yeah, it would be reshifting of some of that staffing. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, to make
Yeah,
that happen.
The social connections thing is an important thing for me. I've seen my kids go through it, and I think we all have, and it's a tough thing. But currently, it seems like those social connections aren't applied anyhow from Bamford kids, because they can't go to Timmins Middle High School, some of them. So they have to either choose Bolts or Weber. So this isn't really changing that much. But I would like to look at the Preston option, because then it'd be actually a positive change to keep those social connections, because it's not just kids that are in those rooms that they're connecting with, the way we do things, which is a beautiful thing, where we're connecting to the general population. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but that's really an important part of everybody's growth and everybody's learning. So I would like to keep that. So I wanted to ask for that. I think it's a quality ask about Preston.
Yeah, thank you. And
Thanks.
that is being done. So we're looking into that, and Jody and Amy are very willing to look into that.
Thank you. Go ahead, Connor.
So, Dr. Chapman, Jesse, thank you so much for the work on this. I tell you, honestly, I was struggling with this all the way until 4 a.m. last night. Regrettably, I can't support it. I am going to try to stick to some of these things, especially the humor part, because maybe there is something that is funny. I think the intent to stay provision in this policy contradicts the objective of the overall policy. The overall policy is to get relief at Timnath Middle High School with urgency now. If we let this kind of legacy intent to stay, I think the children who have the means and access to that will be able to keep their social connections together by enacting that intent to stay and not decreasing the amount of students that we need. That change now also in relation to 41 days by my count before the election. It depends on the website you look at, I guess. In 41 days, there is a chance that the landscape of this district changes severely. Enacting a change now may present this board with unforeseen consequences when we have to make some tough decisions later on down the road. I want everybody to be aware of that because in this zone, previous boards have enacted changes that we are dealing with those unforeseen consequences right now. To Kevin's point, timing and precedence and doing big things, I'm on the other side of that coin. We, in May, decided to stop the long-range planning process. And then within a matter of weeks, we basically started it again for people who said, hey, we need relief. Now, I can see that justification, but then we can't sit there and say we don't understand where the community is when they're saying they don't trust what we're doing. We said we would stop. 3 weeks later, we started right over again. So they're having issues about what we're actually doing. Now, does that decrease the justification over at Timnath Middle High School for them to reduce their population? No. But we need to act as a district and not as singular schools. When we act as singular schools and not as a district, we inevitably get into trouble. Last but not least is that mental health and belonging piece. We as a board and as a community, I'd say, place a high importance on mental health and belonging. This policy goes directly against all of those efforts. We are severing kids' social connections, which has a negative impact on their mental health and belonging. I think that having kids, and this isn't just what's happening as the changes. We got to take it into all the contexts of all the changes. Now follow me on this because maybe here comes the humor. We've had students zoned out of Bethke into Bamford who naturally matriculated at Timnath Middle High School and now are being told to return to Preston and expected to finish at Fossil. Can you imagine a scenario in which a child was in Dunn, rezoned to Putnam, naturally matriculated to Lincoln, and zoned into Blevins and then expected to be going to Rocky? In that second scenario, can you imagine how many people would be out in the parking lot? Because I could. And what inevitably ends up happening is the people that are zoned into this Bamford neighborhood, they don't protest in the parking lot. They protest with their feet, and they leave the district for charter schools. I've seen this 3 times with families already. And then we sit here and we say, why are all these children going to charter schools? Well, it's not because of better educational outcomes over there. It's because these families want stability. They have had to change. There are children who have had to change from Bethke to Bamford to Timnath to Preston and then to Fossil. What these families are looking for is stability. And I'm voting no on it because it seems that this board is incapable of providing that stability. I'll leave it with that. If anybody else has any comments, please go ahead, or I'll call the question as well. I think and myself have beaten the horse enough.
So before you call the question, I just want to point out that while they voting with their feet, 32 of the 50 have voted with their feet to go to Fossil Ridge. So they are staying within the district. So I don't actually agree with that. And I think that this is an easy yes for me, because we have minimized the effect on the students. You focused on the students to make sure that they had an easy transition, a workable transition, and for those who are most affected in the IS programs, to make sure that they have opportunities to make a transition or not. And I truly appreciate that focus on the students. So I feel that this is an easy yes for me. Go ahead.
I don't want to address all of your comments because there's a fair amount of them. But I think one piece that we sometimes lose, or at least I kind of forget about sometimes when we talk about Bamford's boundaries in particular, Bamford opened during the pandemic. We weren't in a space where we were prioritizing considering boundary choices at that point. Right? Same with Timnath Middle High. They open right when we're trying to get kids back in school. We're trying to just stabilize. While having stability is important, you're talking about a time these schools opened that was unstable in a way that hopefully we will never see again and hadn't seen in ages. So would the previous board considered boundaries more robustly at that point? Had there not been a pandemic, I would hope so. But I also can't fault us not having the foresight to fully understand what it would all look like, considering our students were either at home, potentially transferring schools to sometimes charter schools because they were still open. I think there's a variety of reasons why our boundaries weren't changed when these schools initially opened that we also have to consider in this conversation.
Sorry, Carolyn, go ahead. Go ahead, Carolyn.
Okay, so I think I have a question here more than a comment. Is that after we stopped the long-range planning committee and we decided that we weren't going to move ahead with it, we did give charge to the staff to look at boundary changes to relieve overcrowding, right?
Yes, we did.
Okay. And then we also said, would they find out some options for PCA? And I think there was one other thing.
Yes, transitions was the third.
Okay, so
Yes.
So I mean, it's not like the staff just like pulled this out and said, here. We after we were done, we said go do this. So I just want to make it straight that the staff is doing what we asked them to do, what we charged them with. I wanted to get my head wrapped around that because I was like, wait a minute, like we told them to do this. So I just want to get my head
That is
wrapped around that.
correct.
Okay.
I agree with that.
Okay,
I'm
great.
not trying to indict the staff saying that they've gone rogue and started to do things, but I think that it's the responsibility of the board to look themselves in the face and say, hey, we are sending mixed signals, right? We did that, right? And I understand that there's justification for it, but we need to own up to that as well. Because there's other parts in the district that need acute help too. And we didn't take care of them.
I agree, but I think that this is what, as a board, we charged them with. Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, Scott.
Even though Kevin didn't want to hear what I had to say, I'm going to go, I'm just saying. Anyhow, no, I really appreciate what Connor the thought he's put into this, as he does raise a lot of excellent points. The timing before the election is probably the biggest thing, because we may have some tough decisions, and I think the community just needs to be aware of that, depending on how that mill levy goes. The whiplash of kids going, getting changed multiple times throughout their career with the district is a very frustrating thing, and you're exactly right. I had written that down. We need stability. We need that stable district, and I think this reiterates the very real need of a standing long-range committee, because I think when Timothy Middle High and Bamford and Wellington were built, especially on the south end here, we dramatically recruited and split up that Preston and Fossil like too much. And had there been, maybe a long-range committee that was looking at that, we would not be in the problem that we're in right now. So the stability issue has been an issue since then. and we're wrestling with fixing that now, and it's a really frustrating thing. So that just, I think the solution to that is that long-range strategic committee. So with that said, I also feel like we can't keep kicking the can on this, and this does make sense for a whole host of reasons, so I will be voting yes.
Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, just briefly, I think the administration has done a great job on this. I think you've laid out the problem statement clearly. You looked at a lot of different alternatives. I think you crystallized in a very sound alternative. So I'm totally on board, and I'll be voting yes.
Go ahead, Kevin.
One final thought. Thank you, because I wanted to hear from. And I did want to hear from you, but I'd already heard from you, or maybe I hear from you so much I forget when I've heard from you so frequently. Director Schoenmeyer. The last, I want to respond to one thing you said, Director Dovey, because I think it resonated with me, and that I get the sense that I understand the need for stability. I was in that same camp when we were talking about consolidation, but I think what we also have to wrestle with is that we are trying to boil an ocean, and we're trying to be asked to be both nimble and stable in a huge system. And there are needs right now, and so instead of just despairing and say the problems are so big we just can't do anything, we have to do something, and we have to start with something. So what I say is it may be an imperfect solution. I also had concerns about allowing too much additional choice is going to completely obviate the whole thing. It's going to make it redundant, right? But I think this is, to me, it feels like a good compromise. We've listened to our principals. The principals have asked us for this. I have to trust that their judgment, they know more about their universes than I do at this point. And so it's a well-placed concern because I share it too. And I do think that our charter school companions are also offering a certain level of stability that we need to be aware of. So with that, what I'll say is that I'm not a reluctant vote. I'm an enthusiastic vote for this one. I think this is also a model of how we can solve some other problems in our district. But I think we also have to just be comfortable being uncomfortable, knowing that we can't boil the ocean tonight. And so to me, these are big decisions, and they warrant great discussion. They warrant criticism and feedback, but we gotta move. We gotta keep forward momentum. So
I agree with that. I think we do need to do something. I don't think that this policy change is the one. And I'll say I'm worried about losing kids. It's worth noting that there is a charter school right in between Bamford and Timnath Middle High School, and it's full. And it's full. Those are our kids in there. All the new neighborhoods around County Road 5 that are there, those kids have that option. Should we go to Bamford? Should we go to Timnath Middle High School? Should we go to the new charter school? There's a lot of families who are doing that, and we need to be aware of that the actions that we take in this room push some, not all, but some families, and we can't afford with declining enrollment to lose any more. I'll leave it at that. I call the question, the horse is beaten.
Thank you. All right, with that, Allison, can you call the vote?
Jim Brokish,
Aye.
Kristen Draper,
Aye.
Connor Duffy,
No.
Kevin Havelda,
aye.
Carolyn Reed,
Aye.
Scott Schoenbauer,
Aye.
Jessica Zamora.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-1.
Thank you. All right, and so now we will move on to 8.0, informational reports and discussion items. Sorry, I didn't mean to move on so quickly. I wanted to say thank you so much to Dr. Chaplin for all the work that got put into that 3 presentations, the discussions, the one-on-ones, the 2x2s, all of the things that happened when we asked questions, got answers, asked more questions. We really appreciate that robust conversation, and I really do think that helped people form their decisions and feel quite confident in them. So thank you.
Thank you. That's our role. That's what we want to do, and we appreciate questions. They're good, and that helps us help you make decisions and help our community feel good about decisions. Then we welcome the questions. So thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Yeah, Kristen, I'd like to say that even though all of our votes tonight have not been unanimous, I think that the conversation that we were having is much more helpful than a unanimous vote. I mean, it shows that we're thinking about stuff. And Connor, I really appreciated, what you had to say tonight. Even though we might not agree, I really did appreciate your thoughts and where you came from.